Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here. Now you might already know that the Liberal Party has been holding their policy convention over the weekend in which they vote on a whole bunch of different resolutions and whether or not they should adopt them into the Liberal policy that they're going to be pushing going forward. And 3 of these resolutions that were voted on had to do with universal basic income. So in today's video, we're going to go over what these resolutions are, whether or not they got voted through all the way, and what this means for the future of universal basic income in Canada. And make sure to watch all the way till the end of this video because each of these resolutions is a little bit different and we want to look at all of them in order to get a bigger picture of what the Liberals' stance is now going forward on universal basic income and whether or not they're actually likely to push this forward in a timely manner. But before we get into the information, make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up your own investing accounts and take your wealth into your own hands. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to keep staying up to date with Canadian content on YouTube just like this. All right, let's dive into the info. So this is the first resolution that was voted on, and in a previous video we've actually gone through this where we talk about all of these whereases in this whereas section. This is just them providing the information that they're using as evidence to try to get people to vote for this resolution to go through, but the actual content of the resolution is right here, saying that they want the Liberal Party to conduct a basic income cost benefit analysis, including reviews of basic income projects and studies by subject matter experts, explore how they can streamline these federal income supports, and work with provinces, territories, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit to develop and implement a basic income guarantee. So this is what this resolution is trying to promise. Of the 3 resolutions that were voted on, this one was the least progressive because it was really just asking for more research to be done, for them to conduct a basic income cost benefit analysis, do more studies, do more pilot projects, this sort of thing that many people are frustrated with when they're actually looking for something like this to be implemented, not just studied further. But now let's get to the results of this resolution vote. Big thanks to a member of the Discord server, Garrison, who sent me this image with these results. If you want to join the Discord server for this channel so you can send me interesting things and join in on the discussion, check out the link in the description where you can do so. But anyways, for this individual resolution, the vote, and it's a little bit small text here, so I'll read it for you. It was 85% yes and 15% no. So this resolution was successfully passed. Now, the second universal basic income resolution was a little bit more aggressive in its approach and its tone and its wording. Let me show you this one. We won't go over the whereases again because we did that in a previous video, but this one said that they wanted, through a process of intersectional consultation with stakeholders and political parties, the Government of Canada will introduce a UBI for all Canadians. This is what this one's pushing for. Be it further resolved that given the success of the CERB program, UBI will assist seniors and low-income Canadians maintain an adequate standard of living regardless of their working status. So already you can see this is a little bit more aggressive in the language, not the same as the previous one, which was asking for more studies to be done. This one's saying, hey, we want the Government of Canada to actually implement a UBI for all Canadians. And as for the results of this bill, well, it received a little bit less support, but still enough to pass. They had 77% yes and 23% no. So they were still able to get a majority here and make this an official resolution that was passed into Liberal policy. And this is actually rather interesting because it demonstrates that there's actually a lot more support for a program like this inside of the Liberal Party than previously thought. It does, however, show that more people are in support of doing more studies of it rather than supporting it actually being implemented right away. But it is still an overwhelming amount of support for these types of programs. And the same goes for this next UBI related resolution that was voted on. Remember, they did 3. Now, this third resolution for a basic income was looked at through the lens of people in Canada who are struggling with a disability and sort of argues that it would also help people who are in this situation if there was a basic income implemented. They say, be it resolved that the Liberal Party of Canada urge the Government of Canada to provide a basic income to support the work and initiatives found in the poverty reduction strategy and provide an income to families with disabilities sufficient for basic necessities of life. They go on saying, be it further resolved that the Liberal Party of Canada urge the Government of Canada to implement a negative income tax to implement basic income. We'll explain that in a minute. Be it further resolved that the Liberal Party of Canada urge the Government of Canada to intervene in this provincial jurisdiction as it did for universal health insurance, and be it further resolved that the Liberal Party of Canada urge the Government of Canada to match each dollar that the provinces and territories provide as assured income for the severely handicapped up to $2,500 per month. And this resolution was also successfully passed. And this one's a little bit interesting because you might have noticed there were some interesting points in there. They mentioned something called a negative income tax rate. Now, this wouldn't be a universal basic income, but it's a similar approach that many people think may be the better bet to make sure that wealthy Canadians aren't also receiving a benefit like this, meaning it's not truly universal. It would only be going to the people who have lower incomes. And the way this would work is that you'd have a negative income tax rate up to a certain point where you make enough money to no longer qualify for the program, just to put it in its most simple terms. This would mean that many low-income Canadians who aren't in a higher tax bracket would likely receive a larger tax refund each year. And depending on the way this program's rolled out, you could receive it more regularly than just on a regular or on a yearly basis like you do with a tax refund right now. Now, the second interesting thing that they mention here is the fact that they're giving the Canadian government or the Liberal Party the guidance to actually intervene in something that may be a province's jurisdiction. Now, this is something that comes up in a lot of different issues here in Canada, and it's the debate whether or not something should be handled by a province or it should be handled by the federal government. So right here, they're saying, hey, you need to intervene in these provinces, even if technically it might be the Ontario or BC government or Newfoundland or Yukon government's jurisdiction to actually make these types of decisions. They're saying, hey, no, federal government, you step in here and make this program. But what does all of this actually mean going forward? If you're in support of universal basic income, sure, it's great that these resolutions were passed, but does this actually hold anyone accountable to actually do the things they're saying? Well, let me show you this clip that explains something that I think you might find a little bit interesting. Here's something that was said at the beginning of the process where everyone was actually voting on these resolutions. Let's listen in.
But before we begin, I always like to reflect on why. Why are we here and what is it all about? And why, importantly, does this policy process matters? As many of you who joined us back in 2018 at the Halifax Convention remember the process, the in-person process that we went through, where we gathered together and prioritized 15 different resolutions. These topics ranged from affordable housing to telecommunications infrastructure for our northern, rural, and remote communities. Many of these resolutions, all of these resolutions, found their way into the 2019 platform. Again, thanks to Mona and her team who were co-chairing the platform development at that time.
So that's significant because they're saying the last time they did this prior to the 2019 election, all of the different resolutions that were made, that were voted on and voted through successfully in this exact same process were included in the liberal government's policy as they were actually platforming towards this election. So this is actually quite significant because if there's an election, which we are likely to see here in the next little while, especially depending on what's inside of the budget on April 19th, remember we're going to be doing a live stream of that right here on the channel. But if there's an election called, it's likely that based on these resolutions that were voted in, the Liberal government could campaign on implementing some sort of universal basic income. But whether or not they will actually 100% do it, we have to wait and see on that. And as for a timeline on when they could actually implement this, well, chances are it wouldn't be for quite a while. Now, some people were hoping that the CRB could be extended into a long-term program, and they were hoping to hear that at the upcoming budget, but more and more it's looking like that's less likely because all of these votes just went through for UBI to be included in the next campaign for the Liberals, so it would be a little bit odd if they were actually able to implement it right away on this budget date on April 19th. But even if the Liberal government campaigns on this universal basic income, and let's say they get voted in for another term, even if they campaigned on this the whole time, they don't actually have to prioritize getting this done very quickly. You might remember in 2019, they campaigned largely on a universal childcare plan that would broadly cover everyone in Canada. Now, chances are that this is going to be included in this year's budget, 2021. So they were elected in 2019, made the promise, and 2 years later, this is when we're starting to see hints that they could actually be pushing something forward on this front. So if you're somebody who's looking for a UBI, it seems like this could actually take a little while, depending on how much people hold the Liberals' feet to the fire on this issue. And as I always find myself saying here on the channel, the devil is in the details. Whether you hate the idea of a universal basic income or you think that it's the best thing that Canada could possibly do, it's simply too early to tell how this would be rolled out. Now, even if you think this is the best idea in the world, if it was executed poorly by a government in the way they implement it, well, that great idea could go down the drain rather quickly. So we really do need to wait to see more from the Liberal government and any potential future Canadian government before we pass judgment on whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. But either way, I want to hear what you have to say about it down in the comments. What do you think about this? Are you glad these resolutions passed, or is it a step in the wrong direction for Canada? Let me know. I read every single comment and try to reply to as many as I possibly can. And make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up your own investing accounts. Truly, the only person you can rely on when it comes to your personal finances is yourself, so I really recommend learning about that sort of thing. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell to keep on supporting Canadian content on the YouTube platform. And with all of that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. This channel is supported by viewers like you. Thanks, channel members.